If you're looking for investments to grow your money in 2026 and beyond, and you're also interested in investing in exchange traded funds or ETFs, then you'll want to watch this video as I'll be covering what I think are the 5 best ETFs that you can use to grow your money in 2026 and beyond. Welcome back. This is episode 289. I hope that your year is still off to a great start. Last week I spoke about the 7 best investments to preserve your money in 2026. And this week I want to talk about 5 investments to grow your money in 2026. For those people that want to grow more than a CD or a bond will offer you, and if you're willing to accept some more volatility in your portfolio to achieve that growth, then you'll want to listen to this episode. If you don't have a plan for retirement, now is the time to get one. Consider taking my online retirement planning course to begin putting your plan together. As a special thank you to all my loyal listeners, I'm offering a massive discount on my online retirement planning course. You can now sign up for the course for just $99. Normally the course retails for $297, so you're receiving a $198 discount off its normal price. This amazing course has over 7 hours of content and helpful checklists for you to be able to put a plan together for your ultimate retirement. To sign up, head over to retirewithryan.com, then click on courses, then retirement readiness on demand. And you can use the code RETIRE99, that's RETIRE 99, to sign up for the course with this discount. But remember to act fast, as this discount code will no longer work past the end of January. So again, Retire 99 by heading over to retirewithryan.com. So anytime you make investments, it's important that you understand what your risk tolerance is. And last week I talked about the 7 best investments to preserve your money, but this week I'm talking about the 5 best investments to grow your money. And my goal for all of my clients that are retirees is to have an income that outpaces inflation. And the best way to do that historically has been having anywhere from 50 to 70% of your portfolio invested in stock funds or individual stocks. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about. But I also want to preface it in saying that you don't want to have all of your money in stocks, because you want to have about 5 years of living expenses or income that you're going to need to withdraw from the portfolio in your more conservative investments that I talked about last week. So if you haven't listened to that episode, it's episode 288. Definitely go back and check that out. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that I'm talking about investments that are called ETFs, or exchange traded funds. So these are types of mutual funds that invest in a number of things. Some invest in stocks, some invest in bonds, real estate, commodities. They even invest in Bitcoin. But I'm just talking this week about stock ETFs. And the reason that I'm a fan of ETFs is for really 4 reasons. The first being cost. Exchange traded funds have an ongoing cost that is much less than most actively managed mutual funds. So within mutual funds, both exchange traded funds and typical open-end mutual funds, there's an ongoing fee called an expense ratio. And that can go up to 2%. But the beauty of exchange traded funds is that, especially the ones I'm going to talk about this week, is that a lot of them have a cost that's less than 1/10%. So you can save a lot of money that can stay in your pocket in your portfolio. With that savings and costs, usually also you get additional performance. Many actively managed funds where they're trying to outperform the market struggle over time to outperform just a standard benchmark or an index. So that is another benefit that you get, as well as transparency. I'm going to talk about where you can find information on ETFs, and you can find out exactly what you own in your ETF. Within a mutual fund, most mutual funds only have to report their holdings twice a year. So you're not exactly sure what's being held in that fund in between those 2 reporting times, and that can really lead to some miscommunication sometimes about what you actually own. And lastly, being that there's tremendous liquidity with many ETFs, meaning that if you want to buy or sell your ETF while the market is open, you can do that. Whereas with a mutual fund, you have to wait until the market has closed to actually be able to sell your fund. You put your sell order or buy order in before the market closes that day, and your fund is not actually bought or sold until the market closes, until everything is priced out. So those are some of the advantages I see with ETFs, why I use them for my own money to invest, as well as for the majority of my clients' money. So let me talk about these 5 ETFs that I think can be great holdings in your portfolio, both as a core holding and meaning the majority of your portfolio, even a long-term holding. And it could be these funds represent the majority of your portfolio. It really depends upon how you invest. So the first is the State Street Spider S&P 500 ETF, the symbol being SPSM. State Street created the first ETF ever, and that is SPY. That invests also in the S&P 500. However, they created SPYM after SPY because they wanted to offer a fund with a lower cost. So these funds are basically identical, except that SPYM has a slightly smaller cost. So if you're committing new capital, you're making a long-term investment, I would recommend SPYM because of the savings. The expense ratio, the ongoing cost in SPYM is 0.02%, so very, very low, almost 0%. Whereas SPY, the original S&P 500 ETF, is 0.945. So it's not extremely expensive, but it is a little more expensive. And SPYM is a large fund. That's another thing you're looking for when you buy an ETF, making sure that it's a large fund, has a lot of trade volume so that you can easily get into the fund and get out of it. When you have these small funds, sometimes it can be hard for you to get in and out because there's not as much trading going on in the fund. So SPYM has $103 billion in the fund, a very large fund. SPY has $700 billion. So SPY is often used by hedge funds and traders that do a lot of trading because there's a little more liquidity in SPY than there is SPYM. But with $100 billion, there's still plenty of liquidity in SPYM. So this is designed to track the S&P 500. Ironically, it has 504 holdings, and the S&P 500 has had a great run in recent years. I've talked about it in past episodes. The 3-year return is 23% average annual return over the last 3 years. Over the last 5 years, it's an average of 15%, which is also amazing. And this is a cap-weighted index, meaning that the larger the company in the S&P 500, the more money in the fund is allocated to it. That's how the S&P 500 works. It's a cap-weighted index based off the size of the company. So NVIDIA is the largest holding in SPYM at 8%. Apple's the number 2 holding at 6.5%. Then Microsoft's number 3 at 6%. Then Amazon at 4%. And then Alphabet at 3%. So it is probably what you would think. A lot of the large technology companies are the majority weighting in this fund. And if you look at the top 5 sectors, the information technology sector represents 34% in SPYM. Financials are 13%. Consumer discretionary is 11%. Healthcare is 10%. And then industrials are 8.5%. So this should be probably a core holding in most people's portfolios. The S&P 500 is really the benchmark of the financial markets in the U.S. You know, how is the S&P 500 done? You certainly could look at the Dow Jones Industrial, but that's only 30 companies, whereas the S&P 500 is 500. So it's a lot more representative of our whole economy. So that's why a lot of people have it as a large percentage of their portfolio for their stocks. However, there have been periods of time where the S&P 500 has had bad returns. So it's not a sure thing that the S&P 500 is going to make these great returns we've seen in recent years. There's been times where the S&P 500 significantly lagged the market. So the most notable example was from January 1 of 2000 to December 31st of 2009. The average annualized return was a negative 0.95%. So the S&P 500 lost 9% over that 10-year period with an average of a little less than 1% per year. So that's why you want to think about diversifying beyond just the S&P 500, and that will bring us into our next recommended ETF. So the next ETF, for growing your portfolio is the State Street Spider S&P 500 Growth ETF. The symbol is SPYG. This seeks to track companies in the S&P 500 that exhibit growth characteristics. This is based on sales growth, earnings, changes to price, and momentum. So it's also a cap-weighted index, giving more weighting to the larger companies. It has 216 holdings. So if you want more growth than the S&P 500 could potentially offer, or you want to be more invested in the growing companies in the US, this could be a holding that you add to your portfolio. The 3-year average return is 29%, so phenomenal. And the 5-year average annual return is 15%. So this has 42% of the portfolio in information technology, 15% in communication services, 12% in consumer discretionary, then 10% in financials. If you look at the top holdings in this fund, SPYG, NVIDIA is even more. It's 15%, then Microsoft at 6%, Apple at 6%, and then Facebook or Meta at 5%. So this also has a very low expense ratio of 0.04%. And this fund has $45 billion in it. So it's a very large fund, plenty of liquidity, no issues getting in or out. So moving on to the third fund to invest in to grow your portfolio, and that's the State Street Spider S&P 600 small cap ETF. So this seeks to track the small companies in the US. That's what the S&P 600 is. So it's looking to track the S&P 600 index. This has 607 holdings, and the 3-year average return is 10%, so less than the large cap SPYM or SPYG, and a 5-year average annual return of 7%. So it's definitely lagged the market. The top 4 sectors are financials at 17%, industrials at 17%, information technology at 14%, and then consumer discretionary at 14%. And the top 5 holdings, I will tell you, but you've probably not heard of a lot of these companies. So TTM Technology is 0.62%, Sanmina Corp is 0.59%, Arrowhead Pharmaceuticals is 0.58%, Advanced Energy Industries is 0.57%, and Solstice Materials is 0.56%. So definitely a lot more diversified than the large cap SPYM or SPYG because it's more evenly spread out based on these companies. And it has expense ratio of 0.03%, so a very low expense ratio. So this helps really round out the exposure in your portfolio to U.S. stocks. If you want to get invested in as many U.S. stocks as you can, then that's why adding a small cap fund or the S&P 600 could really be a good idea because it's giving you broader diversification. So over that time frame I mentioned earlier where the S&P 500 didn't have a good return, the S&P 600 had an excellent return. So that's a reason to think about investing in it. And recently, the S&P 500 has significantly outperformed the S&P 600. So in 11 of the past 15 years, the S&P 500 has outperformed the S&P 600. Now, maybe this is something we're going to see as a long-term trend that doesn't really reverse, or maybe it goes back and we start to see the S&P 600 outperform. There's been a lot of research recently written by State Street and others saying that they believe small cap is going to have a good year this year and into the next couple of years because of the way that things are going with tariffs and other things in our economy that lend itself to probably some better opportunity for small cap. So definitely something to consider adding into your portfolio. And the other benefit of using the S&P 600 versus the Russell 2000, which is also another small cap index you could track, is that the S&P 600 has all profitable companies, whereas when you look at the Russell 2000, there are a lot of companies in that are not profitable. So moving on to our fourth potential ETF, and that's the State Street Spider Portfolio Developed World ex-US ETF. The symbol is SPDW. So this portfolio, the Portfolio Developed World ex-US ETF, seeks to provide investment results that before fees and expenses seek to track the ex-US BMI index. So they're looking to invest in lots of companies outside of the United States. And I'm definitely, and have been for the last few years, more of a fan of investing in U.S. stocks because they've offered more stability. But the U.S. has outperformed international stocks for a long period of time, and we could be moving into a period where we start to see the opposite happening. So this fund has 2,389 holdings, has a lot of holdings, and has $34 billion invested in it. So it's also a very big fund. The 3-year average annual return has been 18%, so it's been pretty good in the last 3 years. International stocks have picked up. The 5-year return is 8.94%. So the top holdings in this are some companies you might know, but AMSL Holdings is 1.63%, then Samsung at 1.48%. Probably a lot of you have Samsung TVs like I do. Then Roche Holding at 1%, AstraZeneca at 1%, which you're probably familiar with, and HSBC Bank at 1%. And then the top sectors are financials at 23%, industrials at 19%, information technology at 11%, healthcare at 9%, and then materials at 8%. The top countries are 22% in Japan, 12% in the United Kingdom, 11% in Canada, 8% France, and 7% in Germany. It has an expense ratio of 0.03%, so very low expense ratio. But the reason to consider it is because of the outperformance of the U.S. and maybe that trend changing. So our fifth ETF to consider for growth is the State Street Spider Emerging Market ETF. The symbol is SPEM. So this seeks to track the emerging market S&P BMI index. So these are countries outside the U.S., but also outside the developed markets that could offer better growth potential over the long term. If you think about our economy in the U.S., we're seeing our GDP grow by maybe 2 to 3% a year. And many of our households have already reached the middle to upper middle class. When you look at some of these developed countries, they have the opportunity to grow their GDP by 7, 8%, and they have a lot of upward opportunity for the lower class, to move into the middle class, which means potentially more disposable income that can help these countries or these companies that do business in these countries to really grow and accelerate their earnings. So this fund, SPEM, has $16 billion in it, so a very large fund, has 3,030 holdings. The 3-year average return has been 15.49%, but the 5-year return is just 5%. So over the last 5 years, it's really underperformed all of the other funds we discussed. In this fund, the top holdings are Taiwan Semiconductor is 11%, then Tencent Holdings at 4%, Alibaba, you probably heard of at 3%. That's essentially the Chinese eBay. HDFC Bank at 1%, and then Reliance Industrial at 1%. The top sectors are information technology at 23%, financials at 21%, consumer discretionary at 12%, communication services at 8%, and then materials also at 8%. The top countries are China at 32%, Taiwan at 22%, India at 18%, Brazil at 4%, and then South Africa at 4%. So it gives you an idea of where you're investing and what the potential political stability is in these countries. And it has an expense ratio of 0.07%. So very low. All of these funds that we've discussed have a very low expense ratio, which is why they're recommended as core holdings. So State Street is one of a number of ETF companies. They're really the third largest, the first being Vanguard, and then I think the second largest being iShares. But they've made a conscious effort in recent years to significantly reduce their expense ratio, and they have some of the lowest funds that you can buy as far as expense ratio, and also have excellent performance. So definitely something to consider as building out your portfolio. You certainly can do your own research, select your own individual ETFs, but this is what I use with my clients with my own money. These are excellent options to add to your portfolio. And you can build your portfolio with these. You can build your portfolio around these. There's a lot of different ways that you can invest, but they could be an excellent way to build out your portfolio. And the challenge with any of these is always how much do you allocate, and that's where your individual preferences come in. And you can decide how to allocate your portfolio. You can also check out my course for more information on how to allocate, because I talk about possible portfolios and allocations and what to consider. So again, head over to retirewithryan.com and click on courses, then click on Retirement Readiness on Demand to check that out. So I hope this is helpful on positioning your portfolio for growth this year and beyond. And as always, if you have a listener question, you can head over to retirewithryan.com and click on Ask a Question. Have a great week, and I look forward to talking with you next Tuesday. Take care.